We're following developing news from the east end of the city. Two teen girls have been struck by a van near Midland and Shepherd. The collision happened around 3:30 this afternoon. Both girls were rushed to hospital. Talia Ritchie is live at the scene for us tonight. So, Talia, what's the condition of the victims?
Well, Dwight, police tell me that one of the girls is still in life-threatening condition. The other is believed to have minor injuries, but they were both rushed to hospital. Now, the two girls were walking across this street behind me with a group of students when they were struck. They're both 13 years old, and it happened in front of this school behind me, Agincourt Collegiate Institute, but police say the victims attended a different school nearby. Now, police were called to the scene at Midland and Lockie Avenues just before 3:30 for reports of a serious collision. The windshield of the vehicle was cracked in the collision. Earlier, the officer on scene described what happened and also said this serves as a good reminder to be careful in school zones.
At about 3:30, there was a group of children or students that crossed on Midland Avenue from east to west, just south of Lockie Avenue here, as the vehicle was going southbound on Midland. And the vehicle struck two of the students, and those students, two female pedestrians, have been transported to a local trauma unit with serious and up to life-threatening injuries. There's quite a few witnesses. We're still appealing for more. If there's more witnesses that haven't come forward, we would appreciate them to come forward to us and give us more information.
Now, this area of Midland will remain closed for at least a couple of hours while police continue to investigate, and TTC buses are being rerouted as well. Police said the motorist involved did remain on scene and she's cooperating with police, and they're still looking at whether speed was a factor. Now, coming up a little later in the show, CBC analyzed 11 years of pedestrian collision data, and we're going to tell you which areas of the city are most dangerous and who is most vulnerable. Dwight?
Thank you for that, Talia.
What are you doing? What the fuck?
Like, oh my
There's no reason to search him or do this at all. What the What are you doing, bro?
Hands behind your back.
Durham police say officers in this video followed protocol while arresting a 16-year-old in Whitby. You can see the officer punch the teen several times. Police say the officer had to because the suspect was not cooperative. The video was taken on May 15th. Now, police say they were responding to a call about a distraught person with a knife. The video was posted online, with some questioning the officer's tactics. Now, Durham police say the video and the incident report will be sent to the Professional Standards Unit for review. Students might be dressing a little different come September. The Toronto District School Board has made changes to its dress code. As of the new school year, students will be allowed to wear hats and even crop tops. The changes is to allow students to express themselves more. Ali Shiasan spoke to parents and students and educators today. So, Ali, how is this being received?
Well, Dwight, this has actually been in the works for the last year. Parents, students, their teachers, and their unions were all consulted on this new school dress code policy. And it's really funny when you go up to students today and you tell them that their dress code is changing, they get really worried and nervous, like it's being made more strict. But it most certainly is not.
I didn't even know we had a dress code, honestly.
I think that they should just allow us to wear whatever we want, to be honest.
Students at the downtown schools we visited don't really know what it's like to have a strict dress code.
Like, I've seen people wear very, very small tops and just no one really says anything.
Come September, all TDSB schools will have a more relaxed dress policy. For example, students will be able to wear tops that show their midriff, shoulders, bra straps, and cleavage. Leggings are okay, so are yoga pants, ripped jeans, and skinny jeans. Underwear can be exposed but not worn as clothing. Hats and hoods are allowed in class, too. But students can't wear clothing that promotes violence or the use of drugs or alcohol, and they can't wear anything that covers their face.
They allow us to wear whatever we want as long as it doesn't have any profanity on it or any sexual content.
So that's still not going to be allowed, but it means that Shamar Mundell can wear his do-rag.
Have you always been allowed to wear it in school?
This one, yeah, but my last school, no, because it was more of a uniform school.
And Jennifer Niqua can wear this top without worrying about it.
Not all schools are like yours. Like some schools, you wouldn't be allowed to show your midriff.
Well, I'm showing my midriff, so yeah, and I came from schools with uniforms, so I definitely
Public schools with uniforms are in a separate category, but their policies were being reviewed as well. The new policy means parents police what their kids wear.
So the argument is that this allows students to express themselves. How do you feel about that?
They can express themselves. There should be limits.
The teachers' union was consulted on the new rules. They say the new policy was inevitable.
We're at a time now where there's a recognition that dress policies in the past unfairly targeted female and female-identified students and over-sexualized them. And that really how a child or a young adult chooses to dress is up to them and their family, and they should be setting the standards.
So in 2017, the Toronto District School Board underwent an equity review, and that looks at whether the entire student body feels engaged and set up for success equally. Well, they applied that equity lens to the school's dress code, and this is the result. Any parents who have any questions or concerns are being encouraged to talk to their principal come September, or just check out the TDSB website to learn more. I'll send it back to you, Dwight.
Thank you, Ali. Now, the Education Minister going after the Toronto District School Board today for what she calls blatant mismanagement. But the TDSB is firing back tonight, saying the minister got it wrong. In the legislature today, Education Minister Lisa Thompson said the TDSB was planning to buy top-of-the-line Apple iPhones for its administrators. Thompson says at $1,500 a piece, the contract would have ended up costing millions of dollars. Now, the minister says the TDSB has been fear-mongering about budget cuts instead of addressing what she says are ongoing concerns about the board's procurement process.
Only when the Toronto District School Board got caught
come to order.
last Thursday because media started inquiring did they choose to cancel the contract.
The minister is actually needs to be corrected on that item, because in fact she's doing a great disservice to the Toronto District School Board. She knows perfectly well that that did not happen, and it is not happening.
Now, the TDSB issuing a statement late this afternoon, also disputing the facts of the story. The board saying it was an ongoing review of outstanding procurements that led to the cancellation of the cell phone request for proposal, adding the ministry knew or ought to have known that TDSB would not have come close to paying retail prices. The board says no one from the minister's office contacted the TDSB to get the facts before issuing a statement.
That's going to do it. Golden State takes Game 2 of the NBA Finals.
A disappointing end to Game 2. The Warriors tie up the series as the Raptors head to the West Coast for Game 3. The Raptors started off the game strong, leading at the half, but the Warriors came out ready to battle in the third quarter, going on an 18-0 run that had the Raptors trailing by double digits. Both teams are putting the game behind them, though, getting focused for Game 3.
We're in the same boat they're kind of we're in coming here. You know, we got to go out there and get one, right? That's all we got to do is get one, and we can do that.
Obviously on somebody else's home floor. You know, they got the 6 man with the crowd, but, you know, just have to buy into ourselves and, you know, come out hard, strong, no mistakes, no turnovers, and, you know, the same thing you got to do at home.
You know, it was a great win. Now we got to go home and protect our home floor, and we'll see about all the injuries, but I'm very proud of our team, and in particular, all the guys off the bench.
Injuries include Klay Thompson, who left the game because of a hamstring pull. The Raps will take on the Warriors in Oakland Wednesday night for Game 3.
Every game day, Jurassic Park is filled to the brim with fans, so we had a question. Does this city need another basketball team to cheer for? Coming up, athletes make the case for the WNBA to come to Toronto.
Colette, did you use the F word on Radio 1 this afternoon? I see folks on Twitter all over you. What happened?
I'm sorry. Yes, we are still talking about frost. It's June. I know. Ridiculous. Patchy frost, though, possible. There are even some frost advisories. Now, they're north of the GTA, but those are the kind of conditions we're talking about. And in fact, it was cool last night as well. Our average high, daytime high at this time of year, is 22. Here's where we sit. Now, on June 1st and June 2nd, we got to 20 degrees both those days, just a tiny bit above. Today, not so lucky. Our average low, though, is 6.6, and we're going down to about 6 degrees tonight again, and that's why we get into Yes, that F word. All right, the current temperature, though, it's still sitting at 16 degrees at the moment, and those winds, west to northwesterly winds we've been seeing today, sustained winds have been 20 to 30 kilometers an hour, but we've had those stronger gusts. The radar imagery showing things clear for the moment. We do have a few clouds out there. The rains today have been off towards the east, towards the Ottawa Valley, but we do have another system that's working its way in, and it's going to have an impact on us into Tuesday. But look at what happens. So the cloud cover rolls in, but some of the heavier rain looks like it wants to stay to the north of us. As we push through the morning hours, we'll probably start to get tagged by some showers through here. Again, heaviest stuff stays to the north and eventually to the east, but still some showers and certainly some cloud cover through the day. And then as we get Tuesday night, tomorrow night into Wednesday, we'll see some more precipitation coming through. I'm going to talk more about that and what happens in midweek coming up in the show. But for tonight, there you are, 6 degrees. Tomorrow afternoon, another one below seasonal, 17 degrees for the high. But a warm-up is coming, Dwight. I'll explain coming up.
Promises, promises.
Yeah,
we'll
it's
check
coming.
back with you later. Thanks, Colette. It's a report that calls for sweeping changes to Canada's justice system and law enforcement and labels the actions against Indigenous women and girls a genocide. The report from the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls came out officially today. Farah Morelli has more on the ceremony that brought it all to a close.
It was an emotional procession through the Great Hall of the Canadian Museum of History that brought a 3-year journey to an end. The journey culminated in this, a 1,200-page report. One by one, commissioners placed small yellow pouches full of healing medicine onto the pages before wrapping it in a ceremonial blanket. The final report from the inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls makes more than 230 recommendations, like a national action plan to give Indigenous communities equitable access to employment, housing, education, and healthcare. It also calls for big changes to the justice system and policing.
The Canadian state has and continues to enact laws and enforce policies that perpetuate the violation of human and Indigenous rights. This is colonization. This is discrimination. This is genocide.
The report's use of the word genocide has drawn controversy, but today the inquiry's chief commissioner defended it.
It was an inescapable conclusion.
Speaking to the audience, Justin Trudeau stopped short of using the word genocide, despite calls from the audience.
Many institutions will find this day, this report, these truths difficult, challenging, and uncomfortable. This is an uncomfortable day for Canada.
The hope from leaders today that the debate over words like genocide won't overshadow the calls to action.
There's so much work yet to be done.
There's just a few weeks left in the parliamentary session, and with an election just months away, there's uncertainty over which party or leader will be tasked with following through with all 231 calls to action. Farah Morelli, CBC News, Toronto.
Julie Van Duzen has been tracking political reaction to today's developments. So, Julie, how is the Trudeau government responding?
Well, it was certainly interesting to see the ceremony. It was a very long ceremony, very emotional, many people crying, speeches from the commissioners, the elders, and then Trudeau spoke. But while he was listening, we saw him nodding a lot, nodding his approval. But when he gave his speech, he certainly did not mention that one word that many people were listening for, the word genocide, which was the conclusion of the commissioners. But he did say what happened to Indigenous women and girls was shameful, was unacceptable. And he talked about some of the improvements that he was working towards, better conditions, better living conditions, better housing, the preservation of Indigenous languages. However, when it comes to the word genocide, like I say, that is not a word that he used. But he did say, you have my word that I will have an action plan and a meaningful one. Take a listen.
I refuse to let our present and our future mirror our past. To the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls of Canada, to their families and to survivors, we have failed you. But we will fail you no longer.
Lots of criticism coming to the government over this file. What are the opposition parties saying today?
Well, both the Conservatives and the NDP say they are open to the recommendations. Take a listen.
There are some important recommendations, and the Conservative Party will commit to a national action plan in terms of moving forward in partnership, of course, with the Indigenous peoples.
What is going on to the Indigenous community, particularly in light of the report, is a complete system failure. This systemic failure is a genocide, and I support the final reports calling it a genocide.
Now, Dwight, the Prime Minister didn't scrum following his speech, but certainly the Justice Minister said a debate on the word genocide is better left to the academics, that what this government has to do is act. Now, 231 recommendations, 3 weeks left before the House recesses for the summer, then people on the election trail. The commissioners are saying it's up to voters to decide which party has the best response to the inquiry's report.
Senior reporter Julie Van Duzen in our Parliamentary Bureau in Ottawa. Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
Now, if you weren't a basketball fan before, chances are with the Raptors' historic playoff run, you are now. The team has the country in the palm of its claws, leading some to wonder if it is time now for a women's professional basketball team to come to our city. Taylor Simmons has more.
For the win!
That Kawhi basket, yeah, it was pretty good. But have you seen this?
Deladon's gonna get a look at the horn!
Or this?
Nobody better in the history of this game doing that!
Or this buzzer beater?
At the horn!
Probably not. That's because Canada doesn't have its own Women's National Basketball Association team to cheer for, but according to some, they should.
My hope is to hopefully one day see a professional team, a professional WNBA team, right here in my city, Toronto.
Tammy Sutton-Brown was the second Canadian to ever be drafted to the WNBA.
I feel like in the last few years, there's been tremendous growth. In 2017, it was one of their best years in regards to attendance.
Hayes with a second to go, lets it fly, and
Sutton-Brown says Toronto is a prime spot for expansion of the 12-team league. We've got plenty of facilities, homegrown talent, and of course, fans.
Toronto is one of those cities that embraces their sports teams, and I think it wouldn't just be Toronto's team. I think, like you see with the Raptors, it would be Canada's team.
Would you support a women's team coming to the city as well as a fan?
Yes, I would, because the women's basketball is as important as the men's basketball.
The women are getting not much, they don't see the skills of what women can do.
It's an especially appealing idea to young Canadian players like Toronto's CJ Nofuente, a guard on the national team. Right now, there's limited spots for women to play professionally.
And being the only team in Canada to represent the WNBA would be a better experience and make more opportunity for other girls in the States or even in Europe.
And if a team were to come to fruition in her hometown,
that would be a dream come true.
So after all that, we did hear back from the WNBA. They say they're not considering expansion right now, but consider this. It took the NBA 50 years to expand and put a team here in Toronto. And with the WNBA just over 20 years old, there could be hope yet for She the North. Taylor Simmons, CBC News, Toronto.
Donald Trump is back in the UK, visiting the Queen at Buckingham Palace. How this British expedition is being received across the pond, coming up after the break. U.S. President Donald Trump's first state visit to the UK is underway, and while the royals and most British officials kept a stiff upper lip, some sent out critical barbs, prompting the president to respond in kind. Renee Filipponi has more now from London.
Today is about being in the spotlight alongside the royal family. President Trump, the First Lady, and his adult children are here to walk the red carpet and be seen with the royals who were popular back in America. Now, Trump arrived on the lawn of Buckingham Palace in a Marine One helicopter. He was greeted by Prince Charles and Camilla, the Duchess of Cornwall, before being taken to meet the Queen. Guns rang out to mark the occasion. And after a number of events with various members of the royal family, things wrapped up with a lavish state dinner at the palace. Day one of the three-day visit wasn't supposed to be about politics, but the pageantry of the monarchy. But this president can't avoid getting political and creating controversy. This morning he tweeted about the London mayor Sadiq Khan, calling him a stone-cold loser. Now, Khan has been highly critical of the president, saying he shouldn't have been invited for a state visit, even telling people to protest. And many are planning to do just that.
He's seen as our biggest ally, and the policies that he's currently enacting they're sexist, they're tearing apart migrant families at the US border, they're racist politics, and they're going to impact in the UK when we negotiate this trade deal. So we need to be holding him to account.
Tomorrow, Trump meets with Prime Minister Theresa May. Along with a future trade agreement, his visit will likely include talks about issues the two countries are at odds over, including whether Huawei should be involved in building parts of the UK's 5G network. What Trump will be able to accomplish is unclear, seeing as May steps down as leader of the Conservative Party this Friday. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, London.
Both take the kids, go in the basement.
Another tornado touchdown this weekend, damaging homes and buildings from Gatineau to across the river into Ottawa. Residents are now cleaning up, and questions are being raised about an alert system that didn't go off for some. Those stories after the break. A social media campaign from the Ford government has drawn some negative attention, and it's all to do with beer in convenience stores. This past weekend, most PC MPPs posted photos and videos of themselves in stores promoting the idea. Lisa Shing joins us now with more. And Lisa, they're trying to get support for a bill the government is trying to push through.
Right, it's trying to pass legislation that's supposed to end a contract that it has with the beer store that was signed in 2015 by the Liberals. We are in year 4, so there's technically supposed to be 6 years left in this contract, but the government wants to end that early, which could potentially cost hundreds of millions of dollars to the taxpayers. So in trying to pass this legislation, it's trying to get around that. So this weekend, in a coordinated effort, MPPs fanned out from across the province into their local convenience stores, posting photos of themselves, trying to shore up support essentially for that plan to get beer and wine in convenience stores early, and others posted videos.
My friends, isn't it time we put people ahead of profits?
Store monopoly could create 9,000 jobs across Ontario.
Hi, I'm Lisa McLeod, the MPP for Nepean. I'm here today in Bell's Corners at our local variety store.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Tobolo, your MPP for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Convenience store owners aren't just some of the hardest working small business owners.
So this got a ton of criticism online, predominantly from people on Twitter, asking why exactly beer and wine in corner stores is a priority for the government. Here's what Finance Minister Vic Fedeli had to say to that today.
We've heard loud and clear from our supporters who love what we're doing and know that we're going to be providing choice and convenience, but also putting an end to an unfair contract.
But critics don't see it that way at all. Instead, they're echoing what those users, Twitter users online, had to say over the weekend. Have a listen.
Everyday people don't see access to beer as the priority.
I mean, the thing I asked them is, apparently, I guess, according to the Premier, we have a beer crisis in Ontario. I wish they'd put as much emphasis on the climate crisis.
And Lisa, one minister is getting a lot of heat for their convenience store posts, but for a different reason.
Yeah, so that's Health Minister Christine Elliott, and this is the Health Minister we're talking about. Someone pointed out that she posted a photo of a convenience store in Aurora, actually, that actually got charged for selling an e-cigarette to someone under the age of 19 in the summer of last year. So a lot of flack for that. And it also raised a lot of concerns from some people who say, how is the government going to enforce that alcohol doesn't get into the hands of minors as well? So the minister's press secretary said this to us today, saying the owner paid $150 in fines and has since strengthened the store's protocols. Dwight.
Thank you, Lisa. Many people in the Ottawa area spent the day cleaning up and taking stock after a tornado tore through the city yesterday. Robin Miller has the story now from the neighborhood of Orleans.
From the air, it was spectacular. But on the ground, this storm shook residents to the core.
And I grabbed the umbrella and I started getting ragdolled around, and I think it was our bench. It hit me in the back and I just dropped everything. And I think the wind carried me halfway across the yard, but I got there, got in the house and got the door closed and ran for the basement.
I could see chairs behind my house, about 100 feet up in the air. Chairs and garbage cans about the size of this one there, just flying up in the air. I was hoping there was nobody sitting in the chairs, obviously, but oh no, it was chaos.
The wind picked up around dinner time. Environment Canada says the storm started in Orleans before making its way east down the Ottawa River towards Cumberland, with winds gusting to 135 kilometers per hour.
I was in the kitchen and all of a sudden I heard a crack, big crack. I said, my God, what's happening to my house?
Now residents assess the damage. The storm tore apart fences and shingles, ripping mature trees out of the ground. It's just the latest in what's been a series of weather-related disasters in the region.
We've had 2 tornadoes now and 2 floods in a 4-year period. Climate change is very much a reality. We're seeing it in our own backyards. And the reality is that we're going to need the help of the other 2 levels of government, because to build infrastructure at a higher standard, it costs more money.
In Orleans, critical infrastructure like hydro poles wasn't damaged. Roads have been cleared of debris and repairs to homes are underway. No serious injuries were reported, but for some, the trauma of the experience lingers.
I was terrified, obviously. I mean, I didn't really know the extent of the damage till I looked outside after, and then it kind of all sank in that I was outside and that. I mean, it could have been much worse. So.
Now, the hard work of cleaning up will continue over the coming days, and city officials are asking residents to also take care of themselves during that time. They say if anyone is feeling anxious or overwhelmed, they're encouraged to reach out to their friends and family for support, or they can contact Ottawa's Distress Centre, which is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Dwight?
Thank you for that, Robin. Now, there are questions about the Alert Ready system after some people in Ottawa didn't receive Sunday's emergency tornado warning on their mobile devices. You can read more about why online. Just head to cbcnews.ca. And we talked about this last year. It just seems to keep happening in this area there, Colette.
Yeah, you're right, Dwight. I mean, it's less than 9 months since they had that outbreak with those 6 tornadoes through that same area. And you see all the devastation there that occurred from this particular one, and yet it's not one of the stronger ones when we look at what goes on with the scale that we have. This is the EF scale that we talk about. And this one, actually there is, by the way, an EF 0, which is just below 135 kilometers an hour, so wind speeds of about 90 up. But this was an EF 1. So these are the wind speeds we're talking about with this particular one. And I'm just going to roll really quickly through the others to jump to where it can possibly go. The potential for EF 5s over 315 kilometers an hour. So you can imagine that incredible damage occurs with those. It was an interesting situation there because they had a weather spotter that saw the tornado on the ground, and then the warnings went out from Environment Canada for it after it had already began. It was occurring when they went out. So it's a little trickier situation there with the alert system. And, you know, the thing is, the ingredients were there, but it wasn't necessarily anticipated that they were going to see that severe weather. It wasn't that warm a day, and then the temperature kind of spiked into the afternoon as the cold front went through. Well, talking about spiking temperatures, we really aren't seeing that, are we? A cool day today. You know, we have a fairly cool one on tap for tomorrow as well. 16 degrees is our current temperature, close to where we've been for our high for the day, in fact. Not much happening overnight tonight, and that allows for some patchy frost development. There is that risk, so protect your plants with our temperatures dropping down. But the actual frost advisories are more up towards Parry Sound, through Algonquin, and areas through there. So they are well to the north of us. Cloud cover moves in tomorrow. Showers likely, although the heaviest stuff stays to the north, so we'll probably get tagged by this, and then heavier stuff to the east as well. But still, I would expect some wet conditions through midday there into the later morning, into the afternoon. Then some breaks, and then it's overnight Tuesday into Wednesday. We'll see more showers and thunderstorms rolling through. Wednesday morning, probably some breaks again, maybe a few isolated showers, and then some thunderstorms coming through into Wednesday afternoon. So a couple of days to get through where we'll have some spotty conditions, and you'll want the umbrella around for it. Overnight tonight, we're looking at mostly clear skies, and then the clouds roll in tomorrow morning. These are some of these cooler temperatures that we're talking about tomorrow afternoon. Can't quite get to seasonal. 22 degrees is where we should be for this time of year. We'll stay on the cool side, but don't worry too much about it. Wednesday, things start to warm up, and certainly into Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And not only that, we get into a pretty nice clearing trend, setting us up for what looks like a good run at the end of the week and into next weekend, Dwight.
Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
If you live in a lower income neighborhood, stats gathered by CBC Toronto show you're at a higher risk of being hit by a car. The numbers showing almost 50% more pedestrians in the city's poorest neighborhoods are involved in serious or fatal car crashes compared to the richest ones. As Talia Ritchie tells us, young people in those disadvantaged neighborhoods are the most vulnerable pedestrians on our streets.
You always notice this void now, right?
For Heather Sim, the numbers are personal. A driver knocked her father off his bike and killed him in 2017 around Jane and Eglinton, an area we identified as one of the most dangerous for pedestrians.
He was very aware of the dangers on the road and how to safely cycle around the city. For it to happen to him, it could happen to anybody.
CBC Toronto analyzed 11 years of police pedestrian collision data and found that some of the most dangerous areas also include Steeles Avenue West and Yonge Street, Eglinton Avenue East and Midland Avenue, and Eglinton Avenue East and Victoria Park Avenue, the area where a 4-year-old was hit by a motorcycle about a week ago.
I see that mom holding her boy and crying, like loudly crying.
It sounded though it was going very fast, just like that one is going fast now. Okay, but it was even louder. And there's a car that's gone fast. This is a speed zone.
Aggressive driving is one of the culprits, and so is historical urban design. Our data shows that 60% more people under the age of 20 years old were either killed or seriously injured compared to that same age group in wealthier neighborhoods. The author of a recent Sick Kids study says she's not surprised.
We found that there are a lot more higher speed roadways in low income areas and also a lot less traffic calming devices. So there is an inequity in the distribution of how we build our roadways in low versus high income areas, and that's what I think the big issue is.
The city's Vision Zero project aims to bring the total number of pedestrian deaths and injuries down to zero. But since the project was introduced in 2017, the number of deaths and serious injuries have gone up more than 8%. The city councillor who's tasked with reducing pedestrian deaths says these stats are concerning.
The question is, are they living on main boulevards where the distance between lights is very long and there's a propensity to jaywalk? These are the kinds of things we see in suburban neighborhoods, often many of them low income.
27% of pedestrian collisions occur mid-block, so they weren't crossing at a light. For Sim, advocating for stronger consequences for dangerous driving is how she's keeping her father's legacy alive.
I thought I should carry that on for him.
Talia Ritchie, CBC News, Toronto.
A giant donation announced for Sick Kids Hospital. Today, $100 million is being donated from Mattamy Homes founder Peter Gilligan.
It's Sick Kids versus the greatest challenges in child health. And guess what? We are about to win this fight. And today's announcement is going to bring us that much closer, not to just winning this fight, but to building our new sick kids for all of these families.
It is the largest gift ever given to a hospital, and it's part of the hospital's campaign, Sick Kids versus Limits. Gilligan had previously given tens of millions of dollars to the hospital, and for his contributions to sick kids, the hospital announced their new tower will be called the Peter Gilligan Family Patient Care Tower.
There's so many different kinds of wealth, and there's the money wealth, the obvious wealth, but there's the wealth if you can, share and spread things with society, and that to me is just an irreplaceable investment in another kind of wealth, social wealth, if you will.
The 5-year Sick Kids versus Limits campaign was launched back in 2017. They're hoping to raise $1.3 billion. I'm not exactly up on the roof, but I'm pretty close to it. Up here. 30 years ago when this place opened up, it was an engineering marvel. So how's it holding up 3 decades on, and can it last another 30 years? I speak to the man responsible for the Rogers Center roof coming up.
I think it's fabulous. I think it's an unbelievable structure.
It's going to be tremendous here.
It's been a big part of our skyline for decades. In 1989, the Sky Dome officially opened with a bit of a rainy start. It became the world's first retractable roof in any stadium. Since then, it has hosted countless ball games, and some of the biggest stars performed under the dome. 30 years later, is it still a technological wonder? I put that question to the Blue Jays engineering manager, Dave McCormick. We went up to the stadium's top floor to see how the roof is faring and to hear how his team is bringing the dome into the 21st century. But I remember all the hubbub around the Sky Dome opening. How big of a deal was it when they called it an engineering marvel, actually came to be?
It was a massive deal. So much so that everyone couldn't wait to see the roof open and close. And on the opening ceremonies, hell or high water, they were going to open that roof. And sure enough, that's what they did. It was actually raining outside the night we had the opening ceremonies, and they opened the roof so the crowd could see it.
Even though you don't usually open it when it's raining.
No, that'll probably be the first and last time we would do that intentionally.
When you look at it from an engineering point of view, is it still an engineering marvel 3 decades on? Do you still think this technology was so ahead of its time?
I think it was. Well, definitely structurally, it was built like a tank. Anybody that comes into this building, I go, oh my God, I can't believe how much steel is in this building.
It's going to survive anything.
So in that way, we are really robust, we're really strong. And give the technology credit that was put in '89. It had never been done before. We only removed it 5 years ago. Wow. So up until the 2015 baseball season, we were using the day one technology to open and close this roof. And the minute the postseason ended, we ripped everything apart and put the new operating system in.
Now, the dome has been closed all season. I've been seeing the workers walking around here. Talk about the specific upgrades that they're working on right now.
What we're doing right now is we're doing a complete replacement of the PVC membrane on top of the roof. Believe it or not, that started in October of last year. As soon as the baseball season was over, they got up on the roof and they started working. They've been working all winter long. And the goal is by November of this year, they're going to have panels 1, 2, and 3 done. With a complete new PVC membrane on.
And for those at home, the PVC membrane is what we're looking at when we look at the outside of the dome.
That's
the cover.
That's the bright white cover, which actually might be brighter and whiter by the time we're done, yeah.
There's a bird in here. Sorry, I'm being distracted. Can you guys see that?
It's the Blue Jays. We're not 100% sealed up here, as you can see. You can see light penetrating.
Yeah, just a little spot in here.
Yeah, we actually like the air infiltration. It helps us with natural air movement.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And as such, pigeons can come in. So there are quite a few pigeons up here. We also have a nesting pair of peregrine falcons up here. They're on the southeast corner of the building. So
you must have had a blue jay, Dave, at some point.
I've seen a blue jay up here, actually. In 2015, it was the only one.
That's cool.
Yeah, there's lots of wildlife up here.
And when did we say we're going to open up officially then?
We're ready to open now.
Yeah.
So it's up to baseball operations what they want to do going into the next homestand. But that was always our goal. Our goal was to get open for that first homestand in June.
How long do you think this building is going to last then?
Oh,
we're 3 decades on, man. How many more?
Honestly, I don't think there's a limit to that. It just depends on what we're going to do with the facility. But we're strong. We're structurally sound. We're mechanically intact. One of the best part about working for Rogers is the money they've invested into this building. So I don't think there's any limit in sight.
It'd be weird to see the CN Tower without the dome next to it. That's the iconic picture, right?
I think that's the thing. So I think no matter what happens, something's going to be here. It's just in what configuration will it be.
You know, when the fans are in here, for the most part, they usually want it open.
I think everybody wants it open.
Yeah.
And trust you me, everybody that has anything to say with that, we want it open as well. I remember years ago we used to kind of say we're an open air facility that has the ability to close. But we want to make sure it's the playing conditions on the field are perfect for the players. We have the ability to control that, so we will. But we want to make sure fans are comfortable. We're right beside the lake. It's the biggest air conditioner in the world.
Very cool.
Right? So this time of year, it might be nice when you walk in at 7 o'clock, but it might not be so nice when you walk in at 10. But we do have our temperature and weather constraints, and we try to stay within that.
So your advice to the fans, remember, when it's open, you're outside.
Remember what your mother would say, dress for the weather, and you'll be fine.
Appreciate your time, man.
No problem.
Thanks for
Nice
giving
talking
us
to
a
you.
little tour. This is very cool.
That's cool.
And speaking of moms, Dave McCormick's mom watches the show, and of course she's watching tonight because her son is on. So we just want to give proud Miss Mary a shout out and say your son is doing a great job down at the Dome, and thanks for watching.
As of today, our fleet will contain clean diesel, hybrid electric, and battery electric buses. This is important in reducing our environmental impact.
The TTC unveiling its first battery-powered zero-emissions bus today. After the break, where you can hop on for yourself, and when the TTC plans to be completely emissions-free. It's been nearly a year since City Council voted to buy a controversial Mimico concrete plant and move it out of a residential neighborhood, but the sale still hasn't happened, and residents are asking why. As City Hall reporter Lauren Pelly explains, they want to fix the more than a decade of noise, mess, and heavy traffic.
So what they're washing off the trucks is ending up on the grass here, in the pond there, and it's killing trees.
Dirty water flowing onto the street is Dan Irwin's latest complaint about the concrete plant near his home.
And why does this concern you so much?
Well, I figure if it's killing trees, what's it doing to us?
3 years ago, the plant was fined $160,000 by the province for environmental violations and discharging a contaminant. And for more than a decade, residents have been documenting other issues with the Mimico facility, including hundreds of trucks coming and going each day, and new questions about the plant's barrier wall.
The wall seems to be falling apart, aggregate material is falling through.
But the biggest concern these days is how long it's taking for the city to find a fix. Council voted to spend nearly $5 million to buy the plant last summer in hopes of moving it to the Portlands. A year later, there's still no deal.
The whole problem is that they're still there. They should never have been there in the first place. The city admits it. That's why the city's buying the property, to get rid of them. Sole purpose is to get rid of this company.
We reached out to the plant's spokesperson for comment, and they declined our request to go on camera. They did say they're hoping to speed up the sale and reach a fair agreement with the city.
It's imminent.
City spokesperson Brad Ross says talks are ongoing.
These are complicated contractual negotiations that occur, so it does take longer than most would like.
Environmentalists worry the longer things take, the more residents are exposed to potentially harmful impacts.
I think these kinds of facilities need to be located with a very, very clear boundary between where they're operating and residential areas and sensitive uses. That's important in order to protect the population and workers. However, regardless of where it's located, there will still be air pollution concerns and other environmental issues.
That's the ultimate fear for Irwin, since he lives right across the street.
It's affecting my quality of life, enjoyment of my home, and pretty sure my health and well-being.
Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
You could say the atmosphere was electric as the TTC unveiled its newest bus today.
So I hope that we will see today as an example of improving the comfort and the reliability of the transit system, but also making a positive contribution to a clean environment.
Liking the mayor's jacket there, he says he was among the first to ride the fully electric bus. It's going to be traveling a route along Jane Street for now. The TTC plans to have 60 of the electric buses running by early next year.
Once these vehicles are delivered, the TTC will have one of the largest electric mini fleets in all of North America.
The TTC plans to have all of its vehicles be emissions-free by 2040. The electric buses cost close to $1 million each and will initially be rolled out on routes that are 75 kilometers or less. As we head to break, here's a look at where the markets closed today. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
2019.
Fans can get a chance to get their photo taken with the Larry O'Brien Trophy, but it's in an immersive infinity room. It's a really neat, sort of great Instagrammable moment.
Colin and I have to get down there to do that. If having the Raptors in the finals wasn't enough to get you excited, you can now get a picture with the Larry O'Brien Trophy right near the CN Tower. It's part of a partnership with the OLG, so you have to be 18, but it's free. It's open from noon until 10 p.m. every day until June 16th. It's all to get fans pumped up about the finals. And speaking about getting fans excited, a special guest was inside Scotiabank Arena last night.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big Toronto welcome to the 44th President of the United States. It's Mr. Barack Obama!
Oh, I love when Herbie does that. That is the former U.S. President, Barack Obama, longtime basketball fan, was with the NBA commissioner in the lower bowl. There was a surprise for many fans. The delighted crowd, listen, they're chanting MVP. They also gave Obama a standing ovation.
I bet he wishes he was announced that way throughout his presidency, right?
That was very cool. We
Awesome.
only got a little bit of time left, but over 10 million of us watched that game last night.
Isn't that
It's pretty cool.
That's amazing. Yeah.
So, weather. Colette, it's a problem. It's a little cool out there. We've got about 30 seconds to tell them why.
Yeah, it is a little cool. Again, tonight we're going to see that temperature falling to about 6 degrees. Not a lot of cloud cover in the overnight. Some patchy frost is possible. The advisories are well to the north of us, so you know. But that potential there tomorrow afternoon. 17, we should be closer to 22, so it is a cool day. Chance of showers, but we'll warm up after that.
We're cutting your time. You're talking about frost too much. That's it for us tonight. We're out of here. Colette and I will see you back tomorrow at 6. Have a good night, everybody.